What's up to Lion Talk Live? So we love you too, buddy.
What's going on, guys? It is Aiden Hutchinson.
What's up, everybody? It's Calvin Johnson Jr. here, a.k.a. Megatron, a.k.a. First Ballot.
What's up, man? It's your boy Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Greetings and salutations to everyone out there in YouTube land. This is Dan Skipper, offensive weapon for the Detroit Lions. Make sure you all help support Lions Talk Live, Coach Dan, by clicking on that like and subscribe button. Everybody, woo!
I love nothing more than watching Lions Talk Live every morning. Woo!
Woo!
Let's try that again. Well, greetings and salutations to everybody out there in YouTube land. I am your host once again, Dan Thornton. And hey, what a difference a week makes for the Detroit Lions offense. Maybe we could say it wasn't just the play caller. Maybe you could say it wasn't just the offensive line. Maybe the Lions just needed a wake-up call. Whatever you want to give it credit to, here's what we do know. Detroit Lions had a bust-out performance. The Lions offense could not be stopped all game long. Let's walk through it. Jared Goff, nearly a perfect quarterback rating. He went 25 out of 33, 76, I'm rounding up slightly here, 76% completion percentage. That included some throwaways on his part for 320 yards. The Lions offense, over 500 yards of total offense against not a shabby Commanders defense. That is the seventh time in just a few years the Lions have achieved 500-plus yards. And you know what? If you'd watched the Lions in the last few weeks, we've been talking about a lot on the morning show, post-game shows. It just seemed like something was amiss with the Lions offense. Looked like they'd kind of become predictable. Looked like some things just were falling out of place. Maybe some, you can say what you want about pre-snap stuff, post-game snap, whatever you want to credit to. Riley, you see this offense today, and just summarize for me, what's the difference from last week to this week?
Well, so we saw Coach Campbell on the sideline, and it seemed like he was actively calling the plays. And I did see Jeremy Reisman tweeted out during the game too that he does that every week. But it seemed like he was very active with having a hand in the offense. And what you saw today, and you're going to say this anytime you have a game with 500 yards, but there was rhythm. I mean, this was like quintessential Jared Goff. This is Goff at his best with Detroit, where he was calm, he was cool, he didn't get pressured a ton today. I don't know how many times he was brought down, but I mean, look, he had 320 yards, 3 touchdowns, only 8 completions, and then you just had a balance. Everybody had a hand in this. This is a perfect offensive box score because everybody in that locker room now, like, you did your part. No, man, you did what you needed to do, and everybody feels like they contributed. And this was just Jared Goff was quiet and efficient and got the job more than done today. So it looked like Campbell, to whatever extent he took things over, he said we're not going to let this go backwards. Huge game for the Lions. You asked me about the game going into Philadelphia next week. And I said, you just want to have a performance today where you are imposing your will. Take what they give you, but make them give you what you want. And that's what the Lions did offensively today. So now the offense is, the confidence is back, right? The positive feelings are back heading into Philadelphia. And then, boy, we needed that. And how about Sione Vake, man? He finally played today. I know you talk a lot about, he's often hurt, but it was even nice to see Vake get in, and I like seeing Kyle Allen get a shot. That's a best case scenario for the offense, get the backups in at the end of the game.
Here's what I could say, just from a coaching perspective. I know we've talked about it ad nauseum in recent weeks. It felt like the Lions offense had kind of become a little stale, a little predictable. Teams were kind of, jumping plays, kind of having an idea what was going to happen before it happened. We definitely saw that with the Minnesota Vikings a week ago. But today, talk to me about what the Lions did differently from pre-snap motion, getting guys involved like Tesla, like Khalif Raymond, who, man, some Lions fans forgot he was even on the team. We haven't seen Khalif Raymond. And then how about Jameson Williams?
Oh, man, that was beautiful. We talked about it at halftime. Hey, he had 1 reception for 14 yards at the half. And then on that drive, that was, one of those JMO drives where you just went to him over and over, and he had a drag route that he took an extra 30 yards just with the speed alone. And then the touchdown, you heard the guys in this end zone, hell yeah, JMO, fired up. There were through 50 play calls offensively. The Lions had passed 30 and ran 20. So there's kind of the idea that you've got to establish the run, and then that sets up the pass. Yes and no, doesn't necessarily mean that you need to call more run plays. But the sequence of what you're calling and when, and I think that's what Coach Campbell had a hand in, is maybe it's just the sequence of the plays. It's not like the offense has grown stale. You would believe that if the personnel changed. Well, it didn't change for the most part. You still have your skill players in. And so I thought they were creative while still being simple on offense. There wasn't, it felt like with Minnesota, it's like, man, not only do we not have a completion of felt like more than 20 yards, how many times had Goff thrown the ball more than 20 yards? It didn't feel like it was very many. Well, today, it seemed like you had a mix of everything. The Montgomery 4 yards, he's hit it 4, but then it's a gain of 6 or 7 because that's just what he does. And then you see Gibbs catch something and spring loose. It just was everything. You saw everything on display for the offense today, and you do that every week, you're going to have a great chance to win every game.
Obviously the performance against the Minnesota Vikings wasn't great in multiple different facets. Not just the offense, the special teams, the defense. My opinion, doesn't have to be any Lions fans' opinion, but I thought the defense, for having a lot of short fields they faced, I thought they did a pretty good job. Talk to me about what you saw from the offensive line, because coming into today's game, that was one of the biggest worries, that they weren't opening holes, that, Goff was under constant duress. Today, a little bit different story.
Yeah, it was, it's almost like after week 1, they came out, responded really well week 2 against Chicago. And then, if you'd had another bad performance today, okay, now the cause for concern starts to go from just being, maybe just being a little bit nervous to maybe there's some reality to it. Well, what we saw today was huge. And I thought when Panay went down, probably me and every Lions fan out there, we're holding your breath. Not only did he come back, but you saw him on the sidelines fired up. Again, that's the stuff that you need from your best players. So you are relying on Panay Sewell to be his best. You're relying on Taylor Deck. Even if Decker's not the player that he was at his peak, it's still a really good football player. You're relying on Ratledge. Like, you can't have the excuse of, he's a rookie. No, you're halfway through your rookie season now, and you're a starter. Like, the team needs you to be really good. And then you saw Graham fighting out there. When he went out, it looked like he was on the sideline trying to battle with one of the position coaches about maybe coming back in the game. The guys took it personal, and that's what they did after week 1. And my buddy Caleb, he's actually from out there in Michigan, he sent me a message. I was like, hey, I got to read that on the post game. He says, you notice how much more balanced the play calling is with Dan at the helm. Everyone's got touches. He said, I don't think you give John Morton the reins again to go back in. He's clearly a valuable coach. Remember, Ben Johnson wanted him as his OC.
Right.
Maybe he just can't call the plays as well. And Caleb also said, if Morton had gone to Chicago with Ben Johnson, he still wouldn't be calling the plays there. Ben Johnson would be. And so there's value in John Morton, but maybe it's just not play calling, which I know is kind of ironic for your offensive coordinator. But however they did it today, it did seem that, again, Coach Campbell was, had his say in the sequence of play calls. Now, can you go replicate that against Philadelphia or have close to similar production? That'll be the test. But I think the speaking of the test, the offensive line passed their test today, and because they did, that leads to everybody having a hand in a productive and successful day on offense.
I've talked about a lot, the difference between zone blocking for this Lions offensive line and man-to-man blocking. Just real quick coaching commentary, watching this, I saw a little bit of zone blocking assignments, but they were mostly on setup plays where, they tripped and pulled one way, set somebody going the opposite way. Outside of that, though, let's not get into X's and O's, but let's talk about the fact that for 2 straight weeks now, we've seen David Montgomery to some extent in the same backfield with Gibbs. Do you think this is something the Lions are going to start toying with more and more, and how big of a plus could that be for this Lions offense?
Yeah, it was something all offseason. I had that thought. Somebody was asking at halftime too, is this Montgomery's last year with Detroit? It might be. Those are things that you naturally kind of think about. But what we saw as this game was unfolding, it's like, man, I don't even want to go there mentally as to,
Sure.
this Sonic Knuckles, tandem with one without the other, because that's when the offense is at its best. When you have your in between tackles guy. There could not be theoretically a better 1-2 punch than Montgomery and Gibbs, because you've got power, you've got the ability to get, hit and still go for 3-4 yards. And Montgomery's got some shake to him as well. And then obviously we know what Gibbs does. Maybe Gibbs lacks in the pass protection, which was called over and over again last week against Minnesota, where it's kind of like you talked about. It felt like it was stale. It was, Gibbs finished with 28 scrimmage yards last week, 25 yards on the ground. And we said pregame, hey, I think he'll have a play today where he goes for more than 25, and he did. It's just a great combo. And I think if you can get the best of Montgomery and Gibbs, or close to the best, and not just one of them showing up, but, they both bring to the table what they do well. That is the key that unlocks the door for everything else offensively to start working. And then again, you've got Goff behind the driver's seat, and that's a pretty good quarterback to have in that position.
We all get the Lions have a bunch of injuries, a bunch of guys potentially the next week or month coming back. Where do you think this Lions defense is in the next 2 to 3 weeks when Kirby Joseph hopefully back? I know some of the comment section don't want to hear his name, but Davenport back, maybe Reed back in the next 2 to 3 weeks as well, along with Malcolm Rodriguez, Zach Cunningham, etc. Where do you think this Lions defense is by the start of December?
Yeah, well, and then, I love the question, because we talked about that pregame. If you had lost today, it's like, man, what does it matter? As the world's coming to an end, it's 5-4. Well, not only are you 6-3, you keep pace in the division, right, but you perform the way that you did today. And now, because the defense they had a great game today. And when you asked me pregame about, who defensively are you looking at coming back? And I felt to even mention Kirby. I went to Malcolm and DJ Reed. Well, here's the thing: you have a secondary that's playing pretty well, and you're getting 2 starters back, a right, Pro Bowl starter back, and in theory, your CB1 back. So I think it's as long as you continue to win, it's kind of the opposite of last year, where Hutch goes down, you start having this myriad of injuries, and you kind of feel like, at what point are we going to go from just hanging on and keeping above water? Is it going to fold? And maybe coincidentally and poetically appropriate that it was against Washington today. Again, you had Thomas or Harper was out there making plays. Mollett had that amazing stop on 3rd down, batted the ball down. The guys are playing confident. I think they're coached well. I think that they really do have, when they say, guys in this locker room are bought in, I believe it. And it's not just because I'm a fan of the team and want to believe it. I feel like it shows. The team, the body language, the energy, they're all pulling for each other. So I think when Kirby's back, and when DJ Reed's back, and Malcolm Rodriguez is back, I think that the defense is more than just kind of, piecing things together. I think that they are a reason why the team is playing well and hopefully continuing to win games.
I've got 2 last questions for you, Riley, and everybody in the Duke crew. I would love to hear your opinions on this. One, let's start with this. Lacey, he started, and he got a ton of run today as the starting end opposite Hutchinson. Why do you think that is?
Well, I mean, you can say the same thing on offense. If it's working, just keep rolling it. And, for everybody that stepped in today, I feel like everybody did their part, and perhaps nobody more so than even Tyler Lacey. He came in and played well. And again, it's just you start to look at how Shepard's going to be calling things, and you didn't have to dial things up too extensively today, or exotically, I think is the word I'm thinking of, where you just go in and you do your part, and it's a luxury to have somebody like Tyler Lacey be able to go out and rely on him to do his part. And then Roy Lopez, I felt like, was all over the field today, making a couple of plays. And it's nice when you're talking about the Lions defense, and you're not necessarily saying Kirby Joseph or Brian Branch or Aiden Hutchinson or Terry Arnold. Those guys are going to do what they're going to do. But if you get production out of Lopez and Tyler Lacey, like you mentioned, that's just all the better for the team. But Lacey played well today, and Yasin was out there. He played well. I thought he had a kind of a weird penalty called on him, but at that point of the game, it didn't matter too much as far as the outcome. So again, just a good game on both sides of the ball, I felt like, offensively and defensively.
And the last question I got for you, and everybody in the Duke crew, feel free to jump in. Now that we've seen Gibbs kind of really ascend since Dave Montgomery's injury last year, just how good is Jahmyr Gibbs?
Man, he had the one. My buddy Jack was over. We're watching, and we're both like, "Man, he is so good. He is so good. He is." And as we're saying that and just saying it over and getting louder each time, it looked like it was on one of the touchdowns where Laporta pushed him in and St. Brown came running in. And you love those plays, man. As cliche as it is, it's when a guy's caught and he's chopping his feet and then reinforcements come in and push him. That's like football summed up in a single play. And it looked like Gibbs was about to be stopped. I think a lot of running backs, probably half running backs in the league, that's a 4-yard gain. Well, it's not most running backs. It's Jahmyr Gibbs. And so he got in the end zone. Just you expected that there would be a bounce back. You're not going to have a Jahmyr Gibbs game like he had last week. And mind you, he's allowed to have a bad game.
Sure.
He had a bad game last week, but a great football team, you can just almost take to the bank. You can count on it. You can count on it that, hey, he was bad last week. He's coming out with a vengeance this week. And that's exactly what he did, man. He was just outstanding. And then that 40-yard scamper to the end zone, it's just huge, man. It's such a valuable asset and weapon to have a Jahmyr Gibbs on this offense. Whoever's calling the plays, I think it was Dan today, but whoever's calling the plays, you love that you've got number 0 at your disposal.
Just for those paying attention at home, Gibbs finished on 15 attempts, 142 yards rushing. Man, I'm just going to round up ever so slightly and say a 9.5 yards per carry average, long of 43, 2 touchdowns. Dave Montgomery, 15 carries, 71 yards, just under 5 yards a tote, long of 12. Man, that is a dynamic 1-2 punch there. Jameson Williams, most of you guys know, but if not, let me hit you with it. 6 receptions, 119 yards receiving, basically 20 yards per catch, 41 for the long, 1 touchdown. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 5 for 58, 11.5 yards receiving, long of 16, 1 score. Gibbs, 330, 10 average, 14 for a long, 1 score. Man, oh man, the Lions were all over the place. And Cleve Raymond, I can't believe he only had 4 catches for 49 yards. It felt like he was open all day long. And then Sam I Am, 5 for 53, 10.6 average, 14 long, no scores though. On defense, man, I don't think we really had a ton of defensive stats, but let's go through it. Let's see, Brian Branch, 2 sacks, and that's about it for the Lions. Man, oh man, Brian Branch, all he does is everything. So, Riley, why don't you go ahead and give yourself a shout out to everybody where they can find you, support your content, and all that you do.
Yeah, I'm 2 places. I'm part of the Talking Football podcast hosted by Justin Treese, Dan Kiefer, Austin Cunningham, and Doug Anderson. And then, hey, I'm a proud member of the Do Crew, Lions Talk Live. And I just want to say, I think, Coach, now you're at 15,500 subscribers. I think one thing I love is I wake up pretty early in the morning and I'll chime in on the show, and it's great to see every Silver Surfer. I know is a big one. I see every Trim Reaper, Bo Booth, Jay Cruisin. I hate to name names because I feel like I'm leaving people out, but you guys know who you are, and it's just awesome. It's a great way to start every morning. So be sure to all the like and subscribe and share Lions Talk Live. Great place to be up to date with what's going on with the Detroit Lions. And tip of the hat to you, Coach Dan, for a successful day. And now we get a great week coming up here of morning shows and everything in between. And then, hey, Sunday Night Football next week against Philadelphia. I'm ready for it.
I think we're all going to be chopping at the bit for that one, and all probably watching that game tomorrow night, because let's face it, we want the Packers to lose and probably the Eagles to be a little tired out. So we'll find out what happens. Stay tuned tomorrow. There will be the morning show. If there is breaking news tonight, I'm not getting it to you. I'm probably going to go spend some time with the wife, or I won't have a wife. So, hey, Duke Crew, hey, do me a favor before you check out. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit all the buttons. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your day. Do something kind for somebody you don't know. Be a good human being, and we'll see you all on the next Lions Talk Live. Take care, everybody.